In all of professional sports, there are franchises that operate at the highest level and succeed top to bottom, leading to success on the court or field for years to come. Competency from the higher-ups in the front offices is one of the most important factors in all of sports, as they are ultimately the ones that put the teams together and make the decisions that matter in free agency, during the draft, and when negotiating trades. Having strong talent evaluators and brilliant basketball minds in charge is a great start to team success. But if the franchise doesn't have people that know what they're doing in these positions, then it's a recipe for disaster. And this brings us to the topic of today's video. Today, we'll be discussing the Philadelphia 76ers, who have somehow botched one of the most promising futures in the entire NBA. A few seasons ago, they were sitting pretty with two franchise pillars in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. They had assets galore in the form of draft picks and inexpensive quality role players, and they had the cap space to lure big names to potentially form a title contender for years to come. Fast forward back to the present now, and we see that every single decision made in that span has backfired, and now they're in some trouble. In this video, we'll be discussing everything that went wrong and what they've done, what led to this point, why it's happening, and what they need to do to fix it. Before we start though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. Just a few short seasons ago, the Sixers looked like the next team that would reign atop the Eastern Conference. In the 2017-2018 season, Joel Embiid was in his second year and Ben Simmons was in his first, and right away, those two elevated them to being a top 3 team in the conference. The players around them at the time weren't great by any means, but at the very least they fit, and the style of play was both fun and effective. Players like JJ Redick, Marco Bellinelli, Robert Covington, Dario Saric, Ersan Ilyasova, and others spaced the floor so that Joel could dominate inside and Ben could utilize his elite playmaking ability to create easy looks. They got out in transition, they moved the ball a lot, and they had all of the makings of a contender if they stuck with this blueprint. However, they did not do that, and from that point forward, every move made further hampered their future. In that offseason, they had a ton of money to spend, so they went after LeBron James hard, but LeBron chose LA, which, can you blame him? They had the capabilities to trade for Kawhi Leonard since he was looking to leave San Antonio too, but they decided the risk was not worth the price, which, looking back on how Kawhi was literally the one that eliminated them in the playoffs the next year on a buzzer beater, it proved to be yet another mistake. Paul George was another player they could have tried to sign, but George wasn't interested, and after having a ton of hype going into that summer, they came out of it without any impact signings. This led to the team panicking, and early in the next season they traded for Jimmy Butler. Butler was in the last year of his contract, and the Sixers shipped away Robert Covington and Dario Saric to get him, and by the end of the year, Butler didn't even want to be on the team anymore because of Brett Brown, and instead of firing Brett Brown when they had the chance to, they chose him over Jimmy, leading to Jimmy going to Miami, and now Brett Brown is fired a year later, and Jimmy's in the conference finals and possibly going to the NBA finals. Oh, by the way, you also can't forget that during that offseason, general manager Brian Colangelo got caught in the middle of one of the most bizarre stories in all of sports, having made burner accounts to trash the team on Twitter, so he got fired, and then the team failed to hire new GM Elton Brand until after both the draft and free agency occurred, which is a pretty big deal. They thrust Coach Brett Brown into interim GM duties during the most important offseason the franchise has had in a long time, so obviously it didn't go well. Then, on top of the Butler trade, Brand also drastically overpaid in a trade for Tobias Harris. As Harris was in the last year of his contract, the Clippers were open about not being that interested in re-signing him, yet Brand gave away young sharpshooter Landry Shamet, 2 first-round picks, and 2 second-round picks for him, amongst other filler. Then this last summer, we all know they overpaid Al Horford, they gave Tobias a max contract, and are now left with minimal assets and a whole bunch of overpaid players that do the opposite of what their star players need. The spacing is abysmal, there's minimal shot creation, and the future is bleak unless big changes are made. This is where we now get into the important part of the video, because the front office is once again mismanaging the offseason, and I can't help but laugh at how inept they appear to be. be. When the Sixers got swept in the first round by the Celtics this postseason, Elton Brand held a press conference saying this: "I've been taking a deep dive in where we failed, what went wrong, and how we can get better. I felt like we need to strengthen our organization from top to bottom, and that starts with the front office also." These are, at least on paper, promising words, because the Sixers front office absolutely does need an overhaul, and they need it quickly. The longer this whole situation drags out, the more things can go wrong. We are now basically at a month since this press conference was held, and there have been zero changes in the front office. One of the many problems with how decisions get made within this organization in particular is that every decision seems to be a collaborative effort, and a lot of people have a say that don't really deserve to have any say. Ownership is clueless, and when Colangelo got fired, a lot of the people that worked under him remained in their positions, so Brand doesn't even have a team around him that he's comfortable with. One name in particular that I believe needs to go is Alex Rucker, who got promoted to Vice President of Basketball Operations when Colangelo got fired. Ever since his promotion, the Sixers have made nothing but awful decisions. I'm not saying Elton Brand is not at fault too, but the organization actually wants to put their faith in Brand as general manager, and if they want to do that, then Rucker has to go, and then he needs to be replaced with someone that Elton can trust and actually wants to collaborate with. Another major issue I have with what they're doing at the moment is apparently they're conducting their coaching search to replace Brett Brown, but the timeline of doing so is complete nonsense. They need to get the right people in the front office first before they choose their coach, because again, hiring a coach and then bringing in a new group of decision makers that may have wanted a different coach in the first place is how bad organizations get worse, and it's how failure becomes a constant. The coach and the front office need to be on the same page, so their priorities should first be to figure out the front office situation, and then once that's sorted out, then move on to the coaching search. Elton Brand has been backed by ownership after the season, and they said they would back his decision making too, but words are only words until action backs it up. They need to allow Brand to do his job properly, clean house around him, and get a fresh set of basketball minds in there to hopefully turn the team around. The collaborative approach between Colangelo hires, ownership, and Elton Brand clearly does not work. There are years of evidence of this, and yet nothing is done. If they delay these moves any further into the offseason, then the likelihood of yet another franchise-crippling move being done increases, but at this point it wouldn't even surprise me. Joel Embiid deserves better, Ben Simmons deserves better. Please, for the love of God, get somebody in charge that understands how to space out a basketball court so the two franchise pillars can thrive. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think the Sixers need to do to fix this mess. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.